let's say I'm really living at a much higher level of courage and integrity and strength. A guy who's not can sense that. And you call him out and you have nothing to hide because you face everything. And he tries to give you some bullshit excuse that normally he gets away with when it's just him and himself or him and his buddy. He knows he's full of shit. If you create that environment, guys want to level up. We use the term called ally. An ally sees the highest within you and holds you to that and accepts nothing less. If you're compromising in life, you're not going to have honor. You're not going to be a leader. The bond of elder and the younger man or between brothers or father and son is so rich, but this is a broken bond with a lot of men today.
It's the boy crisis that I think we're facing in the West at the moment, where we have absent fathers and young men don't know quite what to do, and there's just this hole where the potential opportunity was for us to be able to see what healthy masculinity looked like. As you said, he needs to have a model that he can see that's like, this is how you do it, and this is how I see somebody showing up in integrity.
You know, when a young man stands in judgment of his father, he breaks this lineage where a lot is passed on, and he's not able to fully honor himself as a man. He's not able to fully embrace his potential as a man.
In this episode, you're going to learn how you can use integrity to unlock more courageous leadership in your life. Let's jump right in. Hey, it's Gareth, and welcome to another episode of the Fathers, Sons, Brothers podcast, where we have conversations and unpack the tools, strategies, and programs that you can use to empower yourself and lead a more courageous life. My guest today is Michael Skye, and we connected a couple months ago, and he invited me to something he was creating called the Calling All Men Summit. Our calendars didn't align for me to be a part of that conference, but I committed to having a conversation with him on the podcast. And our conversation that we're going to be sharing today didn't start off where I thought it was going to start off. We actually started off talking about the role of travel and the importance that that played in my life as well as in Michael's life as a way to help us evolve and support us on our transformational journey. Michael and I spoke about money and the important role that gifting plays in an exchange as a way to build trust. It also got us to a place of recognizing where often men are not open to being able to receive. We have this tendency to want to always be giving. And often when we find ourselves in places where we really want to develop connection, but are closed off to being able to receive, whether it's a gift or anything else, it's impossible to actually create connection in those examples. Michael talks about where a lot of men lose power in relation to where they stand in judgment to how their father didn't show up, their father's shortcomings. And he shares how you can overcome that as a way to be able to integrate that and reclaim the power that you're losing where you judge your paternal role model or father figure in your life to have not shown up fully for the role of the father. We spoke about integrity, a really, really powerful piece of this entire conversation and Michael's work specifically around honor. And he speaks about why radical self-responsibility is the key to developing more integrity in your life. 14 years ago, at the age of 39, Michael Skye gave up a great life as a transformational leader in Austin, Texas, for a life of wild international adventure. As he travels, Michael enjoys creating new entrepreneurial endeavors and learning adventures, including transformational retreats, trainings, and safaris, which he has led in 3 languages across 6 continents. Michael routinely mentors young men, something we speak about in the podcast, and entrepreneurs as he travels, and his most recent work was the creating and hosting of the Calling All Men Summit. In 2024, he returns to his life work, which he calls honor work. We also speak about the role of honor in the podcast. And Michael currently resides in the heart of Africa, where he's just welcomed the birth of his first child. Michael is straight up, no nonsense, amazing dude. I'm really stoked to share this conversation with you. So without further ado, Michael Skye. My guest today is Michael Skye. Michael is a brother who came into my world recently. He seems to be serving a similar mission to me, and despite being originally from North America, finds himself in my homeland in Kenya. Michael, welcome to the show. How did you end up in Kenya?
Hey, Gareth, good to be with you. Yeah, it's a bit of a long story, but I was in Austin, Texas, where I'd made my home for about 14 years by that point. And I had a great life there. I developed a body of transformational leadership work. Um, yeah, I loved Austin. I felt like it was the best city in the US. But I felt like there was a bit of a compromise with the work I was doing because I really had a passion to work with young men. But I was working with more middle-aged adults because I didn't figure that the younger men could pay for it. And so there was kind of just like
Hmm.
this sense of, frustration, dissatisfaction. And also I was, spending a lot of time in an office staring at a computer screen, and I really wanted to be working with people. I come most alive when I'm, leading my live, intense group events. And I had a friend, African American woman, who she taught young people, and she'd heard about my desire to work with young people, and she said, "Why don't you come speak to the kids in my progressive classroom at this progressive school, kind of a visionary school?" And that was a bit scary for me because even though like I would stand in front of the room and lead these really intensive trainings called boot camps, um, walking into like a high school setting, like high school for me was terrible. Uh, Most of high school was terrible. I had no friends. I was extremely shy. And so that brought up a lot of fear, but I knew I had to do it. And I prepared what I felt was a revolutionary conversation, which brought up more fear because I thought, maybe the administrators might, you know, give me the boot. But I gave everything to this presentation. And the kids were like very polite and just left and said thank you and like it was nothing, And I was really called. I was really kind of there to start a revolution, and I was so frustrated at the end of that class, and I expressed my frustration to this friend of mine, and she came to me and said, I'm taking some high schoolers to Kenya on a 3 week kind of cultural exchange program where we're going to go on safari, we're going to meet local people, we're going to stay with local people. And I need someone to teach a curriculum to the kids while we're there, the Kenyan kids. And it's something inside me, like I can feel it now, just came so alive. Like my heart was just like fuck yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that I want. And so everything inside of my head said no. It's not the right timing. I don't have the money. It's not practical. All these excuses. And then when people in my life started telling me, "Oh, Africa's dangerous. You could, die this way and that way and the other way," and I was like, "Wait a second. None of you guys have ever been to Africa. What the hell do you know?" And I could just tell they were operating from fear. And so I was like, "Well, my fear must be the same." Plus, this woman has all the confidence in the world, and she was kind of. She had a tendency to just jump into things completely unprepared. And I was like, she's going to need help. And so I said, yes. I said, I'm going. And I got on that plane and I came and the experience changed my life. I came so alive there with the kids. My experience working with the young people in Kenya was night and day different from the American kids, and so many other things about Kenya. And I promised the kids I'd come back at least every 4 years. And that's happened. And every time I come back, I go deeper. I've got friends here now going on, 18 years now. And I've led different transformational safaris here. I led a men's safari here 2 years ago now. Um, and just recently, I had a baby here. So I was here all last year as I was preparing the summit and preparing to for us to give birth to our daughter.
It's amazing. Do you have a base back in the States still, or is your home now in Nairobi in Kenya?
No, I left on a one-way ticket for good. I gave myself the freedom to never come back. And I like really left. Yeah, and
And that was 18 years ago?
that was 15 years ago. It was after my
Okay.
second trip to Kenya, 4 years after the first one in 2010, when again, it was so profound and I felt so alive here. And I was here for 2 months that time. And when I returned to the States, I could feel myself closing down. Like I would look at people with this aliveness and they would look away. And it was just like, it was too much. Like I was too alive. And I could feel myself starting to get small. And I was like, fuck no. And I sold my things and I got a one-way ticket out. So,
What is that? What's the difference? What do you put that down to?
I think that we all learn a way to cope with the world. Like we learn a certain way of behaving and carrying ourselves. And I grew up on the East Coast of the US, and it's colder out there than it is out west and it is in Texas. Uh,
Hmm.
and, I just around other guys, like on the street, I'm not going to smile at you first. I'm not going to say hello first. I'm not going to show any vulnerability. I'm going to give you the kind of look like I'm better than you and don't fuck with me. That was kind of my demeanor. And so, uh, but in Africa, and well, I spent 3 months in Australia where I led an event there in 2010 with just surrounded by people who've had their hearts open and really intimate, connection for 3 months, and then Africa for 2 months. So it was like 5 months of just like my heart bursting open and great adventure and all of it. And when I came back, I would say that yeah, America's as a culture and as a generality is just not as alive as Africa, you know. And most of the people are not as alive as the people I was around in Australia. So just that, it's. I came back with a level of like aliveness and connectiveness that I just got the sense I was too much. But it wasn't just that. I was yearning for Africa. I was I was yearning for adventure. I was yeah. It was that, and then I had a big conflict with a guy actually who you know. So I'd I'd come back to gift one of my 4-day events to conscientious objectors who are basically soldiers or veterans who have defied orders because it violates their conscience. And those guys a lot of times are shamed. Their retirement's taken away from them. They're dishonorably discharged. And my work is all about honor. And so I wanted to, yeah, restore honor with them and honor them. And my work had saved the life of guys like that before. So I was so excited to do this work. And I had a guy who I paid a lot of money to help me promote this event, put on this event, and he just totally didn't show up. Like no, every what I call honor, it just had none of it. And I went to the
Hmm.
extreme. I went to great lengths to try to have things work with him, and he just wouldn't meet me and make things right. And so there was also a business failure, like a month or two after I returned with this guy. And so I felt
Okay.
humiliated. I was angry, and I was starting to have violent thoughts. And I knew that I
Okay.
had to face myself and look at what was, how I'd created that situation in the first place. So I know it's a really, really drawn out answer, but I went also to travel to explore my shadow and the shadow of my culture. And yeah, I didn't feel like I was ready to continue leading my events until I did
Beautiful. What did you find when you went looking for your shadow?
that. Well, um, there's this American. Okay, so it's very much tied up with the American like self-help shadow, I would say, and the American entrepreneur shadow. So there's kind of this idea as entrepreneurs that you know just take a lot of risk, make a bunch of promises, and then heroically deliver on the promises. Fake it till you make it, whatever, make it work.
Mhm.
And I realized that my way of taking a lot of risk exposed other people to risk. For example, the people who uh, like this event was to help other people as well. But in a way, I put them at risk by not, by some of the ways I went about business. And so I really took a hard look at that, and I had to acknowledge to myself that um, with the kind of work that I was doing, about honor and work where people have sometimes profound spiritual experiences and things like this. Um, yeah, that I didn't want to be doing that. I mean, I found a lot, so this could take a long time, but
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah,
I'm good to keep
yeah,
hearing about this. I think I'd love to. Do you feel like you've integrated it? And let me say what I think. I mean, from what I understand, is that anybody that's doing transformational work as a guide or a coach or a healer, unless they're a complete charlatan, has to have the path of the wounded healer as part of it. Meaning, I can't coach on sex addiction until I've been through that journey myself and been through that, walked that path in order to do it. And so the ability to be able to coach and speak about honor really requires us to have come from a place where we didn't act in integrity or in honor in order to be able to know what it means to show up in honor. And how does that land with you in terms of, yeah, recognizing that and the integration of it?
yeah, 100%. Well, I've also heard it said that we teach what we most need to learn, right? So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, a big part of what I allowed myself to explore and experience and really own was my desire. Um, from my sexual desire to my desire in general. Um, and this was profound. This was profound for me. Um, but also, what I did was I got rid of my business. Like I stopped promoting myself. I stopped marketing myself. I stopped telling people who I was in terms of the work that I do, which sounded kind of really superior to people, whatever. And I stopped all of that. I stopped planning my future. I stopped even planning. I stopped planning where I was going to go next. So when I would meet people, I was all about just connecting with them in the present moment. And I was all about giving and receiving. And it was a really like humbling experience. And people would ask me, because like someplace like Brazil, for example, which is where I spent a lot of time the first couple of years after I was gone, they give Americans a lot of esteem, a lot of respect. Like they'll really look up to Americans. And it could have been really easy to capitalize on that. I mean, I may have in some ways, I go get on a bus and say a few words in my American accent, and all the girls on the bus are fixing their hair before they even turn around and look to see who it is. Like, because you sound like,
Uh,
as an American, I sound like, I don't know, like I'm from Hollywood or something. And so there were
uh,
definitely, I'm sure I definitely enjoyed some unfair advantages there, but um, I just started like giving nonsensical answers to serious questions, and I just allowed myself to enjoy just the in the moment connections with everybody. Like one of the things that was profound for me is I realized that from my old like kind of American perspective, there were so many people that had been invisible to me, you know. Like if back in America, if you weren't a potential customer, or we weren't going to network, like if there wasn't some use for you, then you didn't even show up as like a real person almost. And I started enjoying some of the most profound connections with people who were like street people, beggars, prostitutes, really poor people. Some of those people were really the most connective and alive. And they operate much more in a giving, receiving world. And that was the world that I started exploring. So, yeah, I like consciously try to set aside everything that could have me rely on my old persona, I would say.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think there's something to be said. I think I heard the saying that you can judge someone's integrity by how they treat everybody, including like the waiter at the restaurant or the server that shows up for them. And yeah, I recognize that part of myself as well. I had it more recently as a bit of a light bulb moment where I moved into men's work, and I've been tracking my own desire for money and my money shadow, where I started to see men in my world as potential customers. Like I would be like, there's Michael. I haven't spoken to him in a while. Let me reach out and see if he wants to be part of my program. And it was somehow always linked to trying to make a sale instead of, yeah, just coming from an authentic place of wanting to show up and be in service. So, yeah, I resonate with that. How do we get there? What's the purpose? How did we develop to become so transactional in our engagements with one another? Have you gone back to think through that? Is it a function of culture? Is it a function of a wound, or what do you see?
Well, I mean, I think in the US, and it's the case in a lot of the Western world, that we are so far in debt. Like so many of us, we buy the biggest house we can buy, borrow money from the bank and be able to afford the monthly mortgage, the car, everything. Like nothing is ours. It's actually borrowed. So the moment that we can't pay the bill, it gets taken from us. And if you're a man, if
Mhm.
everything gets taken from you, you're going to also probably lose your wife and your kids, and like so there's an underlying sense
Mhm.
of anxiety, I think, like fear, and I
Mm.
got to keep going. Like I got to keep spinning that wheel, run the rat
Yep.
race. I don't have time to connect. And that's what I found in Africa on the first time. I was like, okay, wait a second. Like compared to Americans, these people have no money. How do they have so much time? Like it was like, time is a rich people thing. How do these people have so much time? And I
Hmm.
yeah, it was but they're not in debt. They're not in debt, you know? They're
Uh-huh.
not working like slaves just trying to pay the banks and trying to avoid the high
Uh-huh.
interest fees and all of that. So they're not caught up in the rat race, like the rest of us. And this was 18 years ago. So I mean, it's changing all over the world. People are starting to adopt kind of this modern Western way of life, which is sad in a lot of respects. But yeah, so I think that, and basically, Gareth, what we do is like, what do we do when we get money? We buy tools and technology to be able to go faster, you know, like buy a washing machine so now I don't have to wash with my hands, buy a microwave so now I don't have to spend as much time cooking. And with every one of these contraptions that we buy to be able to maybe save time, we don't save time. We use that time to go even faster, which means really less
Hmm.
and less and less time. That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's profound. And yeah, it made me think of a time when I first arrived in India on my travels. I left South Africa and found myself in India, also on a journey of self discovery and personal healing, when I first got there, I arrived and looking through my lens, which I think in some ways the world that I grew up in South Africa has a similar lens to most of the West and definitely America in terms of how much of a rush I was in to continually make more and more, the money trap of continually wanting to consume and to buy. And I arrived in India and I remember thinking, wow, these poor people have no money there. And I felt the sadness about how I viewed their way of life. And as I spent time living with a local family down in the south of India for a while, the man who we rented the house from, he lived at the back of the house and he drove a tuk-tuk. And yeah, he lived like, a couple dollars every single day, flowing his ability to be able to pay for his life as he earned it. And initially I was like, wow, shame, these guys are really battling. And the more time I spent there, what I actually noticed is that he would fetch his friend who lived next door, his kids, he would take them to school in his tuk-tuk. He would probably do one or two runs and then come back home. The friend who lived next door was also a barber, and his barber shop operated from his home. And these two men would sit on the street all day, drinking chai, chatting, their kids often playing in the street in front of them. Sometimes his friend would cut hair. Sometimes the other man would go and take somebody on a tuk-tuk ride to pay the bills. But suddenly I was like, wow, they have a way of life that is so chilled. They can be around the people that matter the most to them for more hours in a day than I see my successful, in inverted commas, millionaire friends in South Africa, who many of which don't actually even know how to be with their own children because they're so busy focusing on money and their careers and things like that that they're not sure even how to be around their own kids. And when their kids have got holiday from school, they put them into summer camps. And here I saw somebody who I had originally judged as in a worse place because of their lack of money, actually in a far happier, more peaceful, less stressful place, spending time sitting in the sun, chatting to his mate with his kids around. And I was like, wow, I had it so badly wrong. Like I had judged it in a way that was somehow, yeah, exactly what you're saying. We're continually rushing and we've deemed success to equal money and things. And in some ways, it actually takes away from the very things that make life meaningful.
Yeah, they have those guys you're talking about. They had a wealth of time and a wealth of connection. And most people,
Mm-hmm.
like ultimately, if they were to make a ton of money, that's what they would say. I just want to have the freedom to, enjoy my family and hang out on the beach or just relax. You know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
a lot of poor people, I would say less so like in a big city where there's no like wealth of the land, and you have the stress also, and the maybe the smog and all the unhealthy pollution and stuff like that. But like around the world, as I've traveled, what I've seen is that the poor people who like live in the countryside, in a lot of ways, they're the most wealthy people, in terms of quality of life and connection and enjoyment. And yeah, it was wild to see that. I had so many experiences like that, as I'm sure you did, that I just couldn't. Going back to the US felt like re-entering the Matrix. It's this place where everything is warped.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like everything is warped. And I had an experience, for example, in Brazil. Um, I might have mentioned to you before, like I was on this gifting journey. Well, I went to gift and Kenya started that because I gifted my work for the first time in Kenya. Well,
Okay.
I went to Brazil and I wanted to gift my work again. And the guy who had brought me to Brazil, one of my former students, who I'd also gifted an event to right after Kenya, he didn't want me to gift the things to his people because he's like, no, they won't appreciate it. And there's all these ideas, like in a capitalist system, that if you gift something, people won't appreciate it, and they're confusing as like a sacred gift with something that's free, right? Like
Okay.
if you don't want your old couch anymore and you set it out on the street with a free sign on it, yeah, no one's going to really appreciate that couch, But if the couch means something to you and you give it to someone in need as a gift, as a personal gift, that means something. They're really going to value, that. But so anyway, after I gifted one of these evening events, um, a guy showed up who didn't speak any English, and he said, tell Michael I've got a beach house on the coast of Brazil that just lies empty 9 months of the year. Tell him he can go and stay as long as he wants, rent free in my beach house. And
Wow.
there was an indigenous woman who came up to me afterwards also, and she wanted to be my girlfriend and show me all around Brazil. So we went on a tour and we went to this guy's beach house to live for free. She's cooking my meals, taking care of me, loving me with just this warm, feminine, sweet generosity. And there's mangoes dropping from the trees of the jungle around the house, and the fishermen are out fishing 2 hours a day, and then they play their guitar the rest of the day. It's like, and I had an experience of like, okay, this is what Americans dream of being able to do what one day when they retire, and if they've saved up enough money. Anyway, I had a lot of experiences like that just really made me question everything about the way the Western world worked.
What got you to a place of deciding to go on this gifting journey? What was the thing that made you suddenly decide to start gifting as a practice?
Well, I was kind of an extreme capitalist. Ayn Rand was a big influence on me in my 20s.
What is
And
Ayn Rand?
she's a very kind of, people would call her maybe like an extreme author, but she makes a very powerful, strong defense of capitalism and freedom and individual rights. Not from a religious perspective, from a logical perspective. But anyway, it is a bit of an extreme perspective. And so, and that was my mentality. Excuse me. And when I went to Kenya the first time, I just was going to go gift my work for the first time ever, to these Kenyan kids. And when I did it and I saw the kids receive it and they're in tears and we're working together, and they're like the connection I felt with those kids was so powerful. So I arrived home from Kenya, and I'm trying to process this, like, right, and I'm talking to my former girlfriend about it, who was like my co-facilitator, and she's like, what if we gift the next I Stand, which was my big signature event? And this is the main way I make money, right? So it seemed crazy. It was like almost my only source of income, and it takes months to prepare, and it takes a big team and everything. It's like it was going to take a lot of trust to do that, but I felt so alive about it. So I did. I gifted the next event to people that I was inspired to gift it to. And that event ended up being the most powerful event that I'd ever led. And even to this date is the most powerful event that I've ever led. And it was 100% gifted. And for the first time ever, everything was 100% paid before the event even started. And it was like, what? You know, I'm even in more financial integrity and I've gifted this event. So like
Mm.
those were the gifting experiences that started off like, okay, there's a different way that things can work other than this very capitalist way. And I kept having profound experiences in the gifting realm.
I love that. It's such a mindset shift, though, for so many of us. Like the sense of, I'll gift when I have money. Like that part of the scenario. And I think it actually probably works the other way around. Like our ability to be able to receive is linked to our inherent trust that as we share and gift and support others, that is the start of the flow of energy that will come back to us. But yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What was your
But
original? Go ahead.
I'll just add because I think this is important that I took on the practice I took on was also no more debt. So no loaning money, no borrowing money from people, and no loaning money to people. So if I meet you somewhere in the world and you're a friend of mine and you ask for a loan, I just tell you I don't do loans. But if I felt a
Wow. Okay.
desire to give to you, I would give to you the exact amount that I feel good about gifting to you without any
Okay.
expectation of return, just the amount that I feel good about. And that clears up a lot, you know. And yeah, anyway, I could go deep on it because it's so profound for me. But yeah.
Go deep on it. Share if there's something more there. I mean, I think that's really powerful because I find myself as well. I live in Guatemala, and I'm often presented with opportunities to help men in the community or people that need support, and they're asking me for loans. And yeah, I've got a few $1,000s out in loans in the world at the moment, and some of it gets paid back, and some of it doesn't. But I'm interested to hear how do you hold that?
Well, my first two trips to Kenya, I gave away everything. I came home broke. And I realized, you know, it's like giving money to people on the street in my country as well. It doesn't really change anything, you know, for the most part. So later on, when I came, I would gift my entrepreneurship workshops that I would do in Kenya and Uganda and stuff, and I would say, you know, I'll teach you how to make money, how to make your own money, like teach a man to fish, kind of a thing. But I don't give
Yeah.
out money, you know. So, but what I did on my, you know, more of my practice was like giving and receiving on all levels, you know. So people, this was back in the day. People used to use the app called couch surfing. I don't think it's so big anymore,
Yeah, I
but
used that
I
a few
started.
times. Yeah, yeah, cool.
This is amazing. It's a gift economy. Charles Eisenstein talks about gift economy, and it's hard for people to wrap their head around that people would just give you their bedroom or their couch or their bungalow or whatever and let you stay for however long and just treat you so nice and show you around town. Um, but one of my practices, because when I was traveling, I most of the time I was not paying for my own place to stay. I was showing up in a way where people tend to invite me to come and stay with them. Like I was showing up so generously that people's response was to give back to me and or invite me into their world by giving something to me. For example, invite me to come stay with them. And one of my practices was because I totally could have just taken advantage of that and just like used all these free stays. You know, my one of my practices was that I would always wash the dishes. You know, because people in many countries they want to just be a good host and give to the foreigner and they'll just take you in and they'll like even in Kuwait I had an Iranian man who worked in the first floor of the high-rise place I was staying in couch surfing in and I went down there and he wouldn't let me buy anything like he would just say take whatever you want and I was like what's going on but a lot of the world is actually maybe not that generous, but they're very gracious and kind. So it's something that as a kind of capitalistic, kind of competitive Western guy, I totally could have taken advantage of, you know. So my practice
Uh-huh.
was uh, to first of all, it was to receive. If I felt that if someone's giving me something genuinely, receive it. And
Yes.
most of us are blocked in receiving. You know, we're
Yes.
afraid, oh, I might owe them or whatever. So that was one of the practices. If you feel it's actually a genuine gift, then receive it and receive it graciously, because to receive the gift that someone wants to give you is actually giving them a gift. People
Yes,
around
to
the
be able
world
to
have
gift you.
so many people around the world and people with money love to give. But so many people don't want any charity or help, or they view it in this kind of way. So that was a practice for me. But like when I would go and stay with people, my practice was to always do the dishes, you know, and always show up generously. And like I was, this gifting and receiving thing for me wasn't just on a financial level; it was on in terms of my time, my listening, my spirit,
Hmm.
my service, you know. And Gareth, it changed my life because I realized how generous humanity really is. Whereas the world that I thought I lived in before was a very dog eat dog world. Well, I realized It was only dog eat dog because that's who I was being. So
Oh, that story is so beautiful. I've got yeah, similar things of also traveling to third world countries like Sri Lanka and spending time in India as well. You sit on a train and you start talking to somebody who's genuinely interested, and then they want to share their lunch, for example. They open up their lunch and they're about to eat and they want to share it with you. And there's a part of me that was immediately like, I can't receive this. You need the food more than me. I've got money, you don't. Like some story ran in my head. But I noticed the first few times when I didn't want to take somebody's food, there was a genuine, maybe disappointment from the person who had wanted to share and meet us in this place of being able to share. And by me saying no, because I had a story that I could afford food and this man couldn't, I had prevented him from being able to share the gift that I could receive of having a meal with somebody. And every time I said yes to it, it broke down all the barriers and already created such a beautiful connection. And the same thing, I would then not necessarily have to share money back, but maybe share what I had, water, cannabis, whatever was around that we were involved in, what we were engaging with. There was an opportunity to do that. And it just felt so beautiful every single time. But it really required for me, like you said, breaking the old story that, oh no, I can't take this from you because I've got more than you have. And when I didn't do that, it didn't allow for this reciprocity to flow.
yeah, and not receiving gifts from people like that, it's a disconnection. Like it is a
Uh-huh.
kind of rejection, of like they are creating a bond. They are intending to create a bond, and share love
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
give what they have to give, and
Yep.
yeah, over a number of experiences to Kenya, I radically changed my approach that they had so much to teach me and share with me, and
Mm-hmm.
versus the other way around. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. So you're currently finding yourself in a place in your life where you're working with men. How did that start? You said initially your aim had been to work and be in service with young men. I suppose I heard you speak a little bit more about veterans. What was the interest that got you onto this particular path of wanting to be in service to men?
Uh, I mean, maybe that my own journey as a young man was quite difficult. My parents divorced when I was 14, and my dad left home. And yeah, I had to find my way largely on my own. Um, and yeah, my parents went to war, really divided the family, and I was really contending with a very dominating mother, and I escaped home at 17 before my senior year of high school, but I left my two younger brothers at home. So, I was aware of this, and it was when I found out that each of my brothers were in a difficult spot in the ensuing few years, I went back for them, so to speak. It was just like, I don't know, like, of course, like a calling, And I took my
Mm-hmm.
two younger brothers. My first experience really working with people was my own younger brothers, who I took under my wing, and a third guy who became my brother-in-law. And they were all working for me, minimum wage labor in a landscape business. And I I split the business up into three and sold them on a vision of each of them being entrepreneurs. And then I boot camped them into manhood and uh, extreme self responsibility. Um, uh, and it was the most profound experience of my life. That was the beginning. That was like when, like, this is what I'm here to do. So yeah, that was back in 96, 97. So that was the beginning of that. And then I mean, after just a few months, they're like, all right, Mike, back off. We got it. Like they really radically transformed from being pot smoking, Nintendo playing, minimum wage earning guys doing nothing with their lives to totally self responsible with vision, with control over their own business, hiring people, selling door to door. Like it, the responsibility with the vision and the freedom and the income potential, it's thrilling, you know. So they got it. And they moved on. They're like, Mike, fuck off. We take it from here. So I had to go back and start another landscaping business. And when I did, I found myself taking in young men who needed help, ex-cons, drug addicts, even the lazy ass university kids who never lasted very long. And I ran my landscape business like a boot camp. Like seriously, my greatest passion there was turning boys into men, and no good men into good men. And I just loved it, man. I just loved it. So that's kind of where, yeah, I don't know. I just loved that experience.
What is it in that boot camp type environment that shifts somebody? What do you think it is? What's the nature of the experience that takes somebody from not knowing where they are to suddenly finding their way and getting back on their feet? What do you think that is?
I think that, like, let's say I'm really living at a much higher level of courage and integrity and strength and commitment and everything. A guy who's not can sense that, you know, and if he's naturally going to look up to you and you call him out and you have nothing to hide because you face everything, and he tries to give you some bullshit excuse that normally he gets away with when it's just him and himself or him and his buddies. He knows he's full of shit. And so if you just create, yeah, if you create that kind of environment, guys want to level up. No, guys don't want to be suffering with their own bullshit excuses and, oh, I don't feel like it. Like no guy enjoys that. And so and then when they do get their shit together, now they have your respect and it feels so good. So I don't know. I don't think that it needs to take that long, you know, for kind of a young guy to be put in that situation where I mean, becoming going from boy to man is just a natural thing. Of course, he's going to want to do that. So I don't know. I just love that. And talking about it, yeah.
I want to ask you about a word you used a few times in that last little story was radical self-responsibility. What does that mean to you? Why is it important?
Man, it's everything because there's such power and freedom available in taking responsibility. It's like a cheat code for a video game or something. Um, yeah. So and we had some radical practices for self responsibility and for calling each other out. We used a term called ally, which means that unlike a friend, or maybe most people's idea of a friend, which is to make you feel comfortable, an ally sees the highest within you and holds you to that and accepts nothing less. And so this is the kind of agreement that we created with each other. And so we created all kinds of ways to call each other out and kind of live at our highest. It was not so much a pyramid kind of thing with me at the top. It was like we were all, in a way, we were all equals, holding each other to account. But it was, yeah. Um, and I still, to me, I think, I think a path of no compromise. And this was something that I was influenced by this author I told you about, Ayn Rand. you like there's one book. It's a fiction book called The Fountainhead. It's a very famous book, and the the hero will not compromise his values or his vision for anyone or anything. And so, and um, yeah, I mean, so that's something that I've adopted for my whole life. It's not like I never compromise, but that's my policy is to never compromise. So it's just so powerful. For men who want guys who want to man up or they want to I don't know, become more masculine or whatever, I highly recommend taking on a policy of no compromise because if you're compromising in life, you're not going to have honor. And if you're compromising in life, you're not going to be a leader, you know. So and it doesn't mean it might sound kind of like dominating, like, well, if you're never going to compromise, then you're just my way or the highway. Well, no. Creating win-win is a no compromise approach, where you create a better outcome for everyone than either of you saw to begin with, and that's a no compromise approach. Sacrificing
Mm-hmm.
is a no compromise approach, which gives you profound honor, but it's something different from compromise. So yeah, for men who really want to be powerful masculine men and leaders, no compromise and taking 100% responsibility are it's the way.
What does radical self responsibility look like? What does that look like as a practice?
Well, I think there's many practices, and I've created some tools. One of them is called the inner conflict diagram, and this is a way of um, let's say you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to start getting up in the morning and running at 6 a.m. And then tomorrow comes and it's raining outside. Well, it's raining. I'll run tomorrow, right? And then the next day comes and you stayed up really late and you're like, well, I stayed up really late. I'll run tomorrow, right? Pretty soon there's no commitment left at all because you start making so many excuses. But the inner conflict diagram, it allows you to diagram what's happening in that moment when you wake up and you don't feel like getting out of bed. There's the part of you that doesn't feel like you getting out of bed, but there's also the part of you that said you would, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is a moment of stress. This is a moment, and your mind, your consciousness needs a way to deal with this split inside of you. So by being able to diagram it and see it in one sheet of paper, it allows your conscious mind to now have a choice in the matter and to choose a different path. Whereas this normally we compromise in little moments when we're not even conscious that we're compromising. We just do it automatically, and this drains our power. So, I guess to answer your question, like I've created a lot of tools and things like this for extreme self responsibility. So it's not like just one practice, but I mean, there's a yeah. My
That's good.
work
So,
is
so just for
a
clarity,
result of that commitment. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's actually got into what I was going to ask you next, which is around integrity, like the development of integrity as a practice. And this is it, like the ability to be able to have integrity with your word and integrity in your relationships has to start with your integrity that you have with yourself, keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So just to get clear on this diagram, there's Gareth that goes running and Gareth that doesn't go running. And I map these two things out on a piece of paper when I wake up in the morning and don't feel like doing it. And suddenly I'm like, okay, I recognize that integrity means sticking with my word. Making the other choice is breaking my integrity. And now I have a visual cue that supports me to take responsibility for the decision that I chose to make. Is that how it works?
Uh, yeah. I mean, the best thing would be to show you, but it's like you have an emotional experience as you go through it because you realize this automatic process how much this is compromising you and everything that you say you care about, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
you can just see the loop, and it's a lot of times just seeing it laid out so plainly. It's kind of hard to then unsee it. So the next,
Okay.
it's not going to happen so unconsciously the next time, you know. But yeah, it that's part of it. If we once we see clearly the patterns that are ruining our lives, now it gives us a choice, right? There's something that we can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
But with most things that are addictions or just things where we're just at a complete loss of power, there's something unconscious there happening. Like we're not consciously choosing to betray our values and to um, not have integrity. There's some kind of unconscious like loop or program that's running. So yeah.
What do you see as the role of like men's work and or mentors and or coaches in supporting one another in this journey?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, my first mentors were, I guess, authors who I didn't have a personal relationship with. And part of what inspired the inner conflict diagram was another one of these mentors by the name of Dr. Eliyahu Goldratt, also a guy who believed in no compromise, but he had these logical diagrams and thinking tools for creating and for business. It's really powerful. So yeah, I mean, there are men who have been there, done that, and gone through the hard times and developed tools and whatever. And it's not just a shortcut. The relationship, the relationships with an older man who truly gives a fuck about you is priceless. You know, not just for your learning journey, but for you having someone that you can see what it is to be a man at the next level and admire him and want to be like him. And I mean, I think that mostly we learn through modeling anyway, not through self development, but through seeing other people and copying them. Basically, that's the way humans learn usually the fastest. So yeah, but the bond of elder and the younger man, or between brothers or father and son, is so rich. And but this is a broken bond with a lot of men today, father and son, or older man and younger man. Like we don't respect our fathers like children once did. We don't respect our elders like young people once did in the Western world, and we don't honor them either. And there's something sacred and beautiful that's lost when we kind of threw that off to be free and independent and me. Like we really throw the baby out with the bathwater when we do that. Yeah. What
Yeah,
what
I
do
think it
you what do
actually. Yeah, I'm gonna just echo what you're saying. I think it's the lack of initiation that young men don't have access to when we throw that out, either intentionally because I don't give a fuck about my dad and you can't make me whatever that is, or we have an absent father figure. So there's just this hole where the potential opportunity was for us to be able to see what healthy masculinity looked like, as you said, through modeling. There's no point in drawing it on a diagram. This is what mature masculine looks like, and then tell a teenager to be that. He needs to have a model that he can see that's like, this is how you do it. And this is how I see somebody showing up in integrity. And I'm surrounded by either older men or at least men of my own level who are modeling that level of integrity, like you said, where they call you a bullshit every time and you can't hide, because they've done the work and they were able to show up in that moment. They're also open to receiving reflection from their peers about where they fall short and take that responsibility, that self-responsibility that, yes, I did say I would do this and I haven't shown up for that. So I think that part is it's the boy crisis that I think we're facing in the West at the moment, where we have absent fathers and young men don't know quite what to do. And their only way from there is either completely withdraw, go onto social media, stay at home, smoke weed, play Nintendo because the rest is just too painful, or to get into some sort of gang or something like that where there's some form of initiation, but it's perhaps more anchored in like the immature expression of being having to move that energy, which results in the crisis that comes from drug addiction and gang warfare, that type of stuff. So I think that's potentially the challenge that masculinity is facing at the moment.
Yeah, I would say what's also lost is, when a boy or a guy, young man rejects his father, stands in judgment of his father. He breaks this lineage where a lot is passed on, and he's not able to fully honor himself as a man. He's not able to fully embrace his potential as a man. Um, because the way that he's standing in judgment of his father is actually blocking the the positive attributes of his father that go along with his dad's shortcomings. So for example, a guy who, let's say, a guy's, a boy's father leaves home, and mostly in sympathy with his mom, he agrees dad is too aggressive, he's too angry, he's too selfish, he's too domineering, he's too whatever. Well, this kid is going to have a lot of trouble being successful or really being a leader, being his own man, if he's all the time trying to avoid looking to anybody as, at any time, too aggressive, too selfish, too dominating, too whatever. Um, like he cuts himself off from that masculine power of his father as he stands in judgment of his father. And this can be hard to fully grasp or understand. And I have a diagram for this as well, called the honor
Mm-hmm.
window. You know, um, it's a lead into the kind of shadow work with your father or your mother or other people, um, to grow as a man. And again, this is taking extreme self responsibility. It's another tool for taking extreme self responsibility. But yeah, there's so many ways that Jordan Peterson uses this phrase, "rescue your father from the underworld," and what he's talking about is the ancestral father, or the full potential that lies in your DNA passed on from your ancestors of who you could be as a man, that you've not fully received or that you've not fully developed. And um, yeah, to rescue your father from the underworld is a hero's journey into the shadow realm. And my honor window tool is a gateway to go on that journey.
How do people access your work? Is it something that's available to young men? How do you, if you got, we'll include all your links in the bio below, but what is the nature of your delivery of this content for someone listening to this show that's like, fuck, this is really what I need? Or a young man who's like, this is what I need. Do they need to be in person with you, or can we link up some stuff in the show notes that give them access to these tools?
Yeah, I don't really have a current website. My websites are like 15 years old from before I left on my journey. But
Uh-huh.
uh, for a man who's listening to this, interested in this conversation about men and masculinity and elders and brothers and honor and extreme responsibility, I would suggest going to listening to my Ronin Radio podcast on YouTube.
Awesome. I'm going to use this opportunity, even though we're on air, to say that, brother, what I'm creating with the Father, Sons, Brothers community is really based on a model of collaboration rather than an old model of masculinity, which is in competition. And it's based on the idea that I think that we would create a significantly better platform and a better experience for men that want to dive into this work, when we co-create something together, I have tools and maps and models that support perhaps a different way of looking at the same challenge. And yeah, maybe off air, if this feels like something that you want to bring and co-create with us at Fathers, Sons, Brothers, I would love to, yeah, bring your work into our world and find a way to be able to offer everything that you have on the infrastructure that we've already invested in, so that we've got a place for people to be able to check in. And so, yeah, sit with that. I'm not going to press you for an answer while we're on the
Beautiful.
show,
No,
but I would
yes.
really love to have a place to, like, we've got the team and the infrastructure already there, like to be able to put this into a place where people could access it and go through your content in a way. Yeah, it would be hugely valuable for our audience. And I would love to be able to get your work in front of more people.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I have a number of like logical tools and diagrams and this sort of a thing that helps with the extreme responsibility. And it does give you more facility on your own to do the work yourself. But all these things are much more powerful with a facilitator, with a mentor. As I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
if a man wants to face a part of himself he's never seen before, if he wants to go into this shadow realm that he can't quite see, it helps to have someone else who can help shine the spotlight on it. So, yeah, there's a lot of work out there to be done that's so much more powerful if there's someone like you, to guide us through it, and have brothers, for accountability on the journey. And yeah.
Brother, I mean, this is exactly why we've created the community that we have, and what I loved what you spoke about earlier, the idea that it's not actually a hierarchy. It's like the analogy of a round table where the king's circle, our free men's circle that we have once a month, is the opportunity for us to sit as brothers in a circle together with an agreement frame that we're going to show up in our truth and our authenticity and share what's genuinely alive. And if we have something that we really want to bring, to be able to put that out there and offer it as a space to be able to receive reflection from our peers, because I have shadows that I can't see. And I want men like you and other men in my life that I trust, that have walked this path before, that are walking with integrity, that can call out those places that I can't see, or where I perhaps slip into old patterns or something like that. So, yeah, to have this space has really been behind why I've been so passionate about creating this work. And yeah, hearing these different threads that you're bringing together are confirmation of why it is that we're creating what we're creating.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so needed. And I encourage any man listening to this, if you don't have brothers who really, have your back, and you don't have mentors, just reach out, yeah, I mean, Gareth, I get it. Your heart is there. You're showing up for these men, and it's a beautiful thing. And we need so many more men, who, yes, show up and say, I'm gonna be a brother. I'm gonna be an elder.
And that's also our theme as well. You've touched on this as well. Fathers, sons, brothers. The name of our men's work brand is really the recognition that we have different gifts at different stages of our lives to offer one another as men. There's the exuberance of the young man, the son in that phase of his life, to be able to support those of us perhaps in the middle stage of life, while also honoring the wisdom that comes from the elders that have walked the path before us, and to recognize, as you said, that there's very much an honoring of the wisdom that has been carried by our ancestors, the people whose shoulders we're standing on, and to be able to, while they're still alive, glean their wisdom and to have them as part of the circle, and to share their reflections, not only for us to learn from, but also to honor them, so that they're at a stage of their life where we're not just putting our elders into homes and hoping that they die peacefully without bothering us too much while we're busy doing our own thing, but really coming back to this more indigenous way, where the family unit or the tribe had all three generations sitting around the same fire, all offering different levels of gifts and magic to the tribe. Because as soon as we disconnect from that, we disconnect from that magic.
Amen. Yeah, it not that I want to conclude on this note, because it is a little bit dark, but I think it is something about the modern Western world where we're farming out even our elders to these commercial homes and these strangers to care for them in their last days, and I got to see the horror of that because that's the path that my dad chose. He absolutely refused to let his kids take care of him. And yeah, his final weeks were just terrible, like a nightmare, you know. And I think a lot of us in the modern Western world, we don't want to think about that. We don't want to think about our death. Let's distract ourselves. Let's take out another loan. Let's buy something else so that we don't have to deal with where the end of the road is there. You know. So yeah,
I think
there's a
I
lot
think
of
that
work that we have to do as men to like recover the sacred connections that have been lost.
I actually think that end of the road, I believe, is more a portal to the next transition into whatever comes after death. The mystery, the great unknown. And what you're saying is, yeah, bringing us back into the sacredness to support the people that we love the most, to be in their ease and their relaxation and really in a calm and peaceful state of mind as they transition from this body into whatever comes next. And so, yeah, I think the idea that we just farm them out to a commercial institution and hope that we don't have to worry too much about it and bury them and that's the end of it. I think that it creates more challenge. And I think there's also another huge rabbit hole that I'm interested in, which is our ability to be able to access grief and to genuinely grieve is, yeah, I think something that we've lost connection to in the West. And yeah, from what I understand, it creates a lot of challenges when we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions. And
Yeah, grief is one of the taboo feelings in the American culture and a lot of modern Western culture. And just to make a full loop here with the gifting, neither of my parents, because they both died within a few months of each other, neither one of them would receive the gift of being taken care of by their children in their later years.
mm,
And they both had endings that I think were traumatizing and difficult. Uh, yeah, because of that. So yeah, difficulty receiving, and I get it, man. I'm not just. I don't know if I would want my. I have a baby daughter. I don't know that I want her wiping my ass when I'm 92 years old, and it's
uh-huh.
anyway. Not necessarily leaving it on a positive note here, but
Brother, I really want to say thank you for reaching out. It was because of you connecting with me that we got the opportunity to show up for your circle of men last weekend. A really beautiful bunch of men from all over the world that yeah, have subsequently become friends of mine and are a part of my network as well now. That's thank you to the effort that you've been putting in. I mean, we could speak forever on just how important it is, the work that you're doing, showing up and supporting young men, as well as helping us to be able to feel our emotions and have these authentic and real conversations so that we can build relationships of trust. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for the work that you're putting out into the world, brother. It's an honor to be on this journey with you, like, in another soldier in this great awakening and supporting of men in a time that it really feels needed. So I just want to say thank you for reaching out. And although we've only spent a couple of hours hanging out together and it's only been in the digital so far, I feel you as an ally, as you describe it. I love that analogy of ally. Yeah, it feels good to have you on my team, brother. Thank you.
likewise, thanks for having me here, and howdy to all your guys who might be watching. Look forward to meeting, yeah, everyone in the real world one of these days.
Thanks, man. And again, I'm going to have a conversation with you outside of this to chat about some of the details. But if you feel like bringing your work and co-creating so that we can make the Father, Sons, Brothers offering that we have for the world more meaningful, I'm looking to bring more of us together to collaborate and create something magical. So yeah, hopefully people can connect with you either in the King Circle this Sunday or yeah, any one of our live events or inside the tribe membership.
Let's do it.
Appreciate you, brother.
Likewise.
Much love.
All right, Gareth.
Ciao.